Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Hope you're having a great day if you've started. Hope you have a great day if you haven't. And if you finished today, hope you had a great day. But I just want to talk a little bit today about how the black church disempowers the black community. My wife and I recently went to a funeral of someone very dear to us. Her and her husband had been married 71 years. And when we turned on the street that the church was on, we passed two other churches. When we got to the church, we made the block to be able to park a certain way. Right behind the church on the very next block over was another church. When we left, we went a different way home, and on the very next block over, that was another church. A half block down that other street was another church. One more block, there was another church. And about another quarter of a mile down the street, there was one more church. Do I need to tell you the makeup of the neighborhood? Within 5 blocks of each other, there were 7 churches. And the neighborhood leaves a lot to be desired. The businesses that were once there were boarded up and closed down. Even a famous barbecue place was now closed. Now, how can we as a people be so in tune with the Most High and nothing but poverty surrounds our neighborhoods, especially when we have a lot of churches? See, something ain't right. See, I'm going to say this. We're being taught the Bible the wrong way. Either we're being taught the Bible wrong or we're being taught the Bible the right way and we're not doing the right thing. Or we're being manipulated. How many times do I have to tell you that we are the most overchurched group of people in this country? And we have the worst economic prosperity. Now, either the Bible is lying about prosperity or your pastors are lying. Both can't be right. Now, I'm certain if we spent a little more time and drove through the neighborhood, we would have easily seen another 15 to 20 churches. And see, I'll only do that when I'm by myself, though. I'm not going to take trips like that with my wife in the vehicle with me, but she saw it, when we were traveling that Saturday, leaving a funeral. And she said, boy, you ain't lying when you talk about how many churches we have in our neighborhoods. See, most of your black pastors know it's a difficult process to get business loans in the black community. So why haven't these charlatans set up organizations like our forefathers, our black forefathers used to have, and become the bank for black people who want to start a business instead of just taking black folks' money? They could charge a low interest rate and encourage the congregation to support the business to help the business survive and thrive. The interest payments go back into the funding account for future business owners. See, the money is not to be touched by anyone or touched for anything other than the stated purpose, which is business loans for black people to get started in business. The whole purpose of business should be to uplift and help black business owners. How many of us in our neighborhoods have great talent and ideas that we would love to explore, but the lack of finances is holding us back? See, that's why we only see certain types of businesses in our neighborhoods. We see fried chicken places. We see fried fish places. We see hole-in-the-wall clubs. We see a few daycares scattered throughout the neighborhood that are subsidized by the government. Possibly, liquor store too. And a lot of shade tree mechanics. See, all of these type businesses have quick turnaround for black folks, and they don't cost much to start. See, a shade tree mechanic is called a shade tree mechanic because he found a shade tree to work under. I've used shade tree mechanics myself. Ain't no shame in that, but I'm just saying, these people are trying to make a living. All other businesses in the neighborhoods are more than likely white-owned franchises or some foreign Asian culture owned. Even your fried chicken and fried fish places are not black owned most of the time. They're Asian owned as well. Liquor stores, normally Asian owned. Well, I'm just saying. If you live in a black neighborhood, tell me what type of grocery stores you have. You don't have a Randall's. You don't have a Safeway. You don't have Albertsons. You don't have Fred Meyer. You don't have Kroger. You don't have Publix. You don't have a Sam's Club. You don't have a Costco. You don't have a BJ's. You have to drive to another neighborhood and empower that neighborhood with your dollars. It amazes me that black churches have the money to advertise on TV, pay for their church service, pay for airtime for their church services to be on TV. But if you walk right outside the front doors of those churches, you will see poverty, death, and destruction. Some churches even have ATMs inside the church itself. Some churches even sell you blessed oil and holy water. I tell you what, buy your own oil and bless it. Bless your own tap water before you use it and make it holy yourself. You a priest. I did a previous video telling you asking a question, who is a priest, who is a pastor. You a priest. Bless your own stuff. You don't need nobody, no outsider to come in and bless your house. You don't need no outsider to bless your holy oil. No oil. You don't need no outsider to give you holy water. You a priest. But you only see poverty, death, and destruction. The goal of the church is no longer focused on saving souls, but on whose ministry can outgrow the other. Isn't it amazing that a church has money to build a bigger building, but they never have enough money to uplift the community it fleeces? And just like I do, tithing is never enough for these charlatans. Many pastors extend the hustle game to include sacrificial offerings above your tithes. Others, member of the church leadership board or whatever, extend the fleecing to include a pastoral offering. Now, in the book of Timothy, he calls the person who doesn't care for his own family first an infidel. People only have so much money, and the church does a masterful job playing on people's emotions to fleece them of their hard-earned dollars because these pastors don't want to go to work and find a job. See, many pastors want to use Galatians 6 and 6 to say that you're supposed to share your money with these charlatans. But right before in Galatians 6:5, it says you must accept the responsibilities that are yours. Another version reads, each person must be responsible for himself. Another verse said each person should carry their own load. But they'll sit there and skip all over that and go straight to Galatians 6 and 6. So how do we get to the point where the congregation has to carry the financial load for a pastor and his entire family? That's some real pimping. I mean, I actually, chapter, I believe, 8 in my book, but hey, what do I know? I titled Pimping Ain't Easy, or Is It? And that chapter was focused on the black church and the church as a whole. But more so the black church because we're the ones struggling more than anybody else. But we're so spiritual, according to us. We're more religious than anything. We're more over church than anything. We're missing the spirit. Now, what did Paul say in 2 Corinthians 12 and 14? Paul said, This is the third time that I'm ready to come and visit you, and I will not make demands on you. It's you I want. I don't want your money. And Paul said, after all, children don't provide for their parents, but parents should provide for their children. Are you seeing that in your black churches? Are you seeing that in any of your churches? It ain't just a black church. Are you seeing that in any of your churches? Your pastors sit there and think because they teach you some out the Bible that they provide for you. They ain't providing for you. They just giving you some scripture and with their thoughts. And I told you in the other video, who is a priest, who is a pastor, everybody is supposed to be able to share in some form or fashion. You're sitting on your talent, sitting in these pews. Listen to one dude do the teaching. That ain't Bible. It ain't Bible. I don't care what no pastor or preacher say. That ain't Bible. And when I say priest, I'm not talking about the Catholic Church priest system, because that system is wrong too. That's what your Protestant churches look like. They're nothing more than an offshoot of the Catholic Church. Everybody doing their own thing, and ain't none of it got to do with the Bible. Paul said the parents are supposed to take care of the children, not the children take care of the parents. And the congregation, in that sense, Paul was teaching the congregation or the children, or the people that are being taught or the children. Your physical parents take care of you until you get up out their house and go on your own. Now, I've seen some stories where, some parents have. I read a story the other day, and a young lady was talking about her dad died year before she graduated high school. This was back in, I think she said 1998, and she was 18. She turned 18 and said mom lost a job because she was basically doing other stuff while she's supposed to be working. And, that was when the internet was in its infancy. She said mom spent a lot of time on the internet at work instead of working, and said the house note was, the mortgage on the house was $500 a month. Like I said, you got to remember this, 1998, 99, she said. And it's her, a sister that's a year older than her. And she said mom lost the job, and said her older brother and his wife moved back in the house to help because mom refused to go get a job. And she said she had worked up until the husband died, and then she just stopped working now. I don't know if the husband left any insurance money or anything or any savings. I don't know. But, the way I was reading the story is that, it wasn't much, or either mom blew through the money. And she said because her senior year in high school, she's getting ready to go off to college, no scholarship. She's in college, her sister's in college, and both of them are paying their own way. And since she wouldn't work, brother and his wife moved back in to basically help her and take care of her. And like I said, the young lady said the mortgage on the house was $500 a month, and mom told each one of them that was 18 and over, they needed to give her $1,000 a piece per month for living with her. And she said, so all of them moved out. She said, my brother and his wife moved back in to take care of her since she refused to work. And me and my sister are both college students working our own jobs, trying to pay our own way through college. And she tells each one of us, we need to pay give her $1,000 each to live with her. And she said, so when she told us that, all of us moved out, and she lost the house. She said, and my sister eventually, let her move in with her. She said, but I don't believe in this family above everything, when at the end of the day, all you have left is family. She said, my mother is a user and an abuser. So, just to give you an idea of what Paul is talking about. I'm not saying you don't look after your parents after you get older, but I'm just saying you shouldn't have to start your life before you even get your life started taking care of your parent. You shouldn't be a new babe in the gospel expecting to take care of these dudes. And then, I mean, you shouldn't take care of them like that anyway. But, you know, but these same black churches will take the money you gave them and deposit in a white-owned financial institution that won't even lend black people money to start a business. Now, is that not stupid? These black pastors are stupid. You know, sure, a few churches have food pantries, but in many cases, a lot of the people taken from those pantries are not the ones truly in need. But you can't turn anyone away. Now, if we did a better job of getting to know our neighbors and the people sitting in the pews and, you know, the people we worship with, we would know who truly has a need. Even if they don't attend our church, we would know who has a need. Because all of us know somebody that's struggling somewhere in their life. And we know they have a need. And some of them might just be too proud to let, you know, others know. You know, but hey, sometimes you can just bless people without them feeling like you're giving them, you know, and be able to give to them without insulting their pride. And see, the Bible talks about pride too. You know, pride comes, you know, with the destruction. Pride comes before destruction. But when we have people showing up at the food pantry taking in spite of not needing it, it further taxes the members who financially give into the pantry to provide for those in need. See, we got to stop this foolishness. Now, I've said before that church has become a business more than a place to share and receive the gospel. On average, the black church brings in around $11.5 billion every year. Did you hear me? 11.5 billion with a B, not an M, million, billion with a B. Now, show me any business, black, white, Asian, or Hispanic, that generated that type of money in the black community. The black church is breaking it in every year. No other entity in our communities generates that type of wealth. And to top it off, it's all tax-free to the church. But you, as the tither, have paid taxes on it already. So you get double taxation. Federal taxes and state taxes come off the top of your check depending on where you live, because not all states have state taxes. But we know the federal is coming straight off the top. Then your pastors tell you to pay tithes, which is a tax on your gross wages. And that is gross. Because they always tell you, you know, you're supposed to tithe off your gross. Tithe off your gross. But see, I'm going to say this again. Tithes has never been money. Nowhere in the Bible have you ever seen tithes became money. You know, they always like to point back, Abraham gave tithes before the law. Yeah, but they never tell you what Abraham gave. Jacob gave tithes. What did Jacob give? You know, the only people that were tithing, even in the Old Testament, were farmers. Farmers were bringing food. That's all. You know, and I mentioned before, you know, I've had people tell me, you know, it wasn't no money back in the Old Testament. And see, but right in the first book of the Bible, Bereshit, Genesis is the Hebrew name. I mean, Bereshit is the Hebrew name. Genesis is the Gentile name. Ain't that amazing? Genesis, Gentile. But anyway, in the book of Bereshit, it says Abraham had money. But we so churched, we so religious that we don't even know that money was in the Bible in the book of Bereshit, Genesis. Because our charlatan pastors done told us wasn't no money available. There's money all throughout the Bible, every book of the Bible. When are black churches going to put back into the communities they're stealing from? When me and my wife were on the way to the funeral, we saw one of the most prominent black churches in the city, here in the city. They have bought up all the houses that used to be on the streets behind the church and built more church buildings. Is that really helping the community or helping the church and the pastor? How would our unemployment numbers look if the black church helped to fund business creation? Now get this. If we create more business, then we wouldn't have to worry so much about discrimination in hiring. If we created more business, we could teach our youth about having pride in the place that they live and not destroying. I mean, look at all this stuff they're doing around the country and all these establishments, because these Democratic politicians have said, don't prosecute, don't do anything. Let them just rob your stores. And all these stores having to shut down. Guess what? Almost all your stores are shutting down. In your community, Negroes, they stealing out these stores. I even see it's not just black people hitting these stores. Now it's groups of all races and colors hitting these stores. So the black church ain't helping the community at all. They giving us a feeling. Nothing more, nothing less. What if the black church took some of that money they have exploited the people for and fixed up some of these rundown houses and these rundown and shut down businesses and opened them up and started something else? What if the church used some of their resources and got some of our people off the streets, helped them rehabilitate and helped to introduce them back into the job market and society? What if the church took some of that money and brought organic produce and sold it at a farmer's market? Better yet, what if the church found some land, since they know how to keep building buildings, and taught some of the youth and adults how to farm and let them run their own farmers markets? What if the black church spent a little time teaching us who we really are as a people according to the Bible, instead of teaching us what seminaries and other misinformed pastors have taught them? I mean, it's sickening. These pastors and their minions do what they can to take more money out of the congregation's pocket, but offer nothing but a momentary feeling in return. We need to be teaching something of value in these churches. We ain't teaching no value in these churches no more. We aren't even really teaching the gospel in most of these churches. Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, doesn't matter. But how is it when we see a predominantly white community, we see a few churches scattered throughout, but many thriving businesses? Why is it when we see a Hispanic community, we only see a few churches scattered throughout, but we see many businesses being operated by Hispanics? Why is it when you drive through an Asian community, you see very few churches, but a thriving business community that doesn't allow outsiders to even operate there? But when we see black communities, we have a shopping mall of churches to choose from, but not a lot of places to do business unless they are owned by another culture. The black churches could put all these other businesses out of business if they encourage blacks to own a business and help these blacks to get started with a good foundation. But in reality, most of your black pastors are not interested in a thriving business community. And so it shows how short-sighted they are. If we had multiple thriving businesses, more money would be able to flow into the plates of the church. If more money flows into the plates of the church, it actually builds up the account that's set aside to make business loans to more businesses, and we could have more businesses into the community. We could have more businesses being able to pour into the church. But your black pastors don't want thriving black businessmen in the neighborhood competing with them. Did you hear me? Black pastors don't want thriving black businessmen in the neighborhood competing with them. They love being the sole authority in the black community. They love being the contact person for politicians so they can supposedly act and speak on behalf of the black community. Businessmen speak in other communities. Don't know preachers and pastors speak on behalf of the community. Yeah, they'll invite them in, but businessmen and women speak on behalf of the community. Not no stinking preacher. How many of your churches sell stuff on the inside? Now, what did the Messiah do in John 2:16 to those who had turned the house of worship into a marketplace? We are over-churched and economically deficient as a people. We are over-churched and morally corrupt as a people. And you might be saying, well, other coaches are morally corrupt too. And however true it may be, Yahuwah only gave his commandments to one group of people, and that's us. True Israel. Now, Israel, you still have true Israel, and those who become believers, true believers, become part of um, DNA Israel. But the gospel was only given to true Israel, and true Israel was supposed to take the gospel everywhere else. These pastors of all races, cultures, and denominations love to tell you to give to God first. Now, is that really what the Bible teaches? What does Proverbs 19 and 17 say? Proverbs 19:17 says something to the effect of give or lend to the poor, and Yahuwah will repay you. Now, that's Old Testament. What does 2 Timothy 2 and 6 say? Uh, the former husbandman should be the first partaker of his labor. Something to that effect. And husbandman or former basically means head of household. That's New Testament. Now, what does your pastor say? Give to God first. Give to God first. Give to God first. We're already struggling to make it as a people, as it is. And many of these pastors actually make our financial situation much worse because we can't think for ourselves. See, we were looking for a church home some years back and visited one, and it was just way too crowded in a black community. I mean, we've attended churches of different denominations. That's just us, and it was just way too crowded. And some people might say, well, if it's too crowded, that means the word was good. Hey, the word is good in almost every black church, because most people, black people, when they go to church, it's like that old Toyota commercial. Some of you might be too young to remember this old Toyota commercial. You say, "Oh, what a feeling!" And that's all we get when we go to black churches. Black people are looking to feel good. We like to feel good. We like to look good. But for the most part, we ain't living good as a whole. So these pastors make our financial situation much worse in the black community. And like I said, we visited the store. I mean, we visited the church, and it was just too crowded. And so, sometime later, we went to a grocery store. And that was another couple shopping in the store as well. We didn't know the couple. We just spoke to each other in passing and got to talking. And they actually happened to be members of that church that we had previously visited. I shared with, the guy that, we enjoyed the message, but it was just way too cramped in there. He said, well, we have a much, much bigger church now, and y'all should come on back. Well, I drove by the church, and the new building looked very nice. It was well built. But you know what else I saw? The same poverty that was there before we went to visit that day. So although the church was nice, the neighborhood still wasn't. These churches continue to take from the neighborhood, but don't sow back into those same neighborhoods. Why don't black pastors really promote economic empowerment among members of the churches? They have meetings without the congregation when they're instructed as to what their true duty should be to the black community. See, y'all don't know about that stuff. And one of the major duties is to give black folks an illusion that they act on our behalf. They don't. Have you ever read the book Sunday Morning Stick Up by David Lee? My friend and mentor told me about that book some years ago. But Lee talks about a service he attended. He was being interviewed by CNN one time. And, he said he was attending this church and he had already given twice. The churches have benevolent offerings first. That's where you get a smaller amount. And then they, later on, after you get the message, then they take up the tithes, after they get you feeling good. And, Lee said, I'm paraphrasing a little bit. Lee said, a pastor walked up onto the pulpit, and, I call it the concert stage, to pass on a request. In the previous video, where I talked about who was a priest, who was a pastor, that was a word I was looking for, and I couldn't think of it. And I just thought about it. It just clicked to me. That word is sophists. Sophists were people who went around and delivered messages to the church, to the people for money. That's where you get the word sophisticated from. That's just how sophists were. That's why you got the word sophisticated. You ever seen something that's done with such sophistication? That's where the word, that came from the word sophist. They were very sophisticated in delivering messages for money. They were so sophisticated they would tell people when they should clap and applaud when they spoke, because that's just how sophisticated they were, and the people complied. And so, David Lee said, he had already given, and the pastor walked onto the stage to pass on the request. And he said, the guy said, y'all won't think I'm crazy, but, God says for y'all to give again. And Lee said the congregation got up from their seats and, and marched. We shall overcome. Marched to the front of the church as the church organ played a good song. And they dropped off the offerings. And he said the pastor kept on. He said God told him that they should give everything. Don't hold nothing back. And, Lee was saying, these people bypass common sense. He said, I think he said some guys, had on alligator shoes and took them off and put them in the basket. And he said, some people took off their watches and put in the basket. He said one lady even took off her diamond wedding ring and put in the basket. I mean, that's sick. These pastors are sick. The people who attend these churches are sick. You have pastors who tell black folks to get life insurance, but these same jack-legged pastors continue to guilt you into giving into their church or ministry. And see, just like Lee stated, how can a person buy life insurance when they're giving the church all that they have on a regular basis? I remember I was talking to somebody and they were telling me that a member of the church had retired from the job and had received the bonus, I guess some type of severance package upon her departure and retirement. And so she gave the church a $2,000 donation out of her bonus. And the person said the pastor turned around, took that $2,000 donation and bought plaques for other members of his leadership team. And see, a lot of people came for life insurance because they going on, that presidential phrase from a few years ago, hope and change. I hope it change. It ain't hope and change. When they give into the church, they saying, I hope it change. And, pastors like to reference that scripture when Yahusha said the woman gave all she had. Let me say this again. There's no such thing as a paid pastor anywhere in no Bible you read. Nowhere. Not even Galatians 6:6. Nowhere. And if you want to know the truth, ain't no church building in the Bible either. The Bible says Yahuwah doesn't dwell in walls built by man anyway. And I know how that's going to. That's because he's within us. Well, if he's within us, that means he's wherever we are. So that means we don't have to come to a church for him to be there, for his presence to be there. Because what's going on in most of these churches now, he ain't there anyway. The Bible calls everything that your pastors call a church an assembly. I mentioned on that other video who was a priest, I think, or it might have been on House and State. I don't remember which one. About one pastor who told the leadership of the church he manages with the slave whip that they're required to tithe. Some pastors won't allow you to hold a position in the church if you don't tithe. The last church me and my wife regularly attended, we found this church had this policy in place too. We don't go there anymore. I wanted to work with the youth during the summer programs, because I've always liked working with the youth. When I first started my speaking career, I was speaking to youth because it's a lot easier to get youth headed in the right direction than trying to go back and convince grown folks that they strayed off at some point in life. And I'm not talking about, other stuff. I'm just talking about, hey, let's get on this path of goal setting and all this other stuff before life gets in and slaps you across the head. And nobody ever taught me about goal setting before I left college. I never heard about no goal setting. Even in all the school teachers, um, nobody ever used the term goal setting to me. And so I started speaking to youth first. And because I believe in our youth, I believe in the future. We have to be careful about what we're teaching our young folks, because as we get older, they're the ones that are going to be making decisions that take care of us or don't take care of us. And so I wanted to work with the youth during one of the summer programs, but since I didn't tie it, I wasn't allowed to participate because, they said, if you're going to be a leader of our youth, you have to set the proper example. Who said the example they're talking about is proper? It's proper. That's their example. That's not the biblical example. I could set a biblical example for the youth, but I wasn't setting a church or pastoral example to the youth. See, the proper example they're promoting and want you to promote is that you don't question. You just do, even if it's not biblical. And this wasn't a black church. This is a multicultural church. This church had like close to 97 different countries represented in that congregation. Some of these black churches cost millions of dollars to build, and you got people sitting in the pews who have to catch a city bus to get there because they can't afford a car, but they can afford to tithe. Because they can tithe because their pastor said to sow into God, and God gonna bless you with that car. Malachi 3:9, see, they love 3-9. Malachi 3 verses 8 through 10. Malachi 3:9 says the priest, not the congregation, were plundering the whole nation. What does 2 Corinthians 8 and 13 say? He said, let me grab that right quick because I don't want to mess that one up. I was just paraphrasing that other stuff, but I want to, grab that one for you. Okay, 2 Corinthians 8 and 13 says, of course, I don't mean your giving should make life easy for others and hard for yourselves. I think Paul is pretty clear right there. Your giving should not make others' life easy. That includes your pastor. You don't make it hard for yourself to take care of some Negro who don't want to work. Preaching ain't working. Preaching is talking. As somebody who does public speaking, I don't feel like it's work when I'm talking. I've never felt like it's work, even when I wasn't getting paid. And I'm not doing it right now because I'm still in recovery mode. So guess what's not happening? I'm not getting paid. But I'm not out here trying to fleece people to get paid. You don't burden yourself to take care of these Negroes. And Negroes, my grandmother told me, I ain't going to say the other word. My grandmother said they can come in any color. Because, see, the modern Bible translation say a black person. But original translation used to say an ignorant person. And my grandmother taught me that years ago. She said they can come in any color. So you don't make your life hard by making these people's lives easy. Giving these dudes salaries to stand in the pulpit is making their life easy. Make them go get a job. See, stop denying yourself and your family because you're trying to make sure the pastor and his family are taken care of. The pastor should not be dressing better than you with your money. The pastor's wife should not be dressing better than your wife with your money. The pastor's children should not be dressing better than your children with your money. The pastor's children should not be attending private schools with your money while your children attend public school. I mean, the pastor shouldn't be taking vacations with your money and you can't afford to go around the corner. The pastor should not be living in a more expensive house than you with your money. What did Paul say? Paul said many times throughout the New Testament that he worked with his own hands to take care of his own needs and the needs of the men or people who were with him. And one of the places you can find that is over in Acts 20 and 34. And see, when Paul said he worked with his own hand, he wasn't talking about preaching, because some versions of the Bible say he ministered with his own hand. But get this, right before that, in verse 33, Paul said, when I was with you, I never wanted or coveted anyone's money or fine clothes or linens. See, if the church refuses to participate in uplifting the community, start to starve that church. It has served no use to us as a people anyway recently, for the last 50 years at least. It used to be a place we could call home. It used to be a place where we could uplift one another. It used to be a place where we could encourage business ownership. It used to be a place where we taught our kids and educated them. It ain't that anymore. Starve it. How can we be so filled with the Spirit and still in the same predicament economically since the Civil Rights Act was signed? We were better off as a people before the Civil Rights Movement in every area that is plaguing us right now. Start taking your money and create organizations that will act as lenders to business owners. You don't need the church to do that. Take the money that you're giving to the church and do it. See, they love to tell you, God loves a cheerful giver. They never tell you that God never specified directly where you should give. See, if you take your money and put it into a lending institution that's going to give to people, you have satisfied your obligation. And when I say obligation, you've satisfied your obligation of giving, because there's no set amount of what you're supposed to give financially. So start taking your money and create your own organization away from the church that will act as a lender to our business owners. See, back in the day, they were called mutual aid societies, and they did exactly what I'm talking about. See, they made low interest loans to business owners. I guarantee you that every black church has a person sitting in the pews with a financial background. And they don't have to be an accountant, a bank, or a financial advisor. They could be someone who handles payroll and budgets where they currently work. See, we have to start using the resources within our community to build our community. Stop letting all these other communities use our resources to build their communities. The church uses everybody's talent, but we need to make a shift in where that talent is being utilized. We have a lot of talent sitting in these pews going to waste in more than one area. You have school teachers, so why don't our churches open and operate private schools within the black community? We have all types of financial people in the pews, so why not open a credit union? I guarantee you there's some people sitting in the pews that know how to garden. With the way things are going, more and more people are going to need to learn how to grow some of their own food. A friend sent me a link to a video titled Live to 100. I believe it's on Netflix. And guess what? Almost every one of those coaches were doing. They were gardening and growing their own food. And these people in their 90s and hundreds, living and leading active lives, they were still walking almost everywhere. They weren't even using their vehicles, because they said the walking and everything was their form of exercise. In one place, I believe in Italy, when they got out and did their walking, they were walking uphill to start their day. You realize what type of work the heart's putting in when you walking uphill? See, one of the reasons we have as many health issues in our community is because as we get older, we become less active as a people. And if we live in a neighborhood that's predominantly black, the grocery stores don't offer organic produce and meat. and butter, but it does offer a lot of prepackaged foods. Our neighborhoods get the lowest quality foods in those grocery stores. Now, every one of our churches, I guarantee, has someone with a medical background sitting in the pews. I guarantee you. What are the health issues that plague us as a people more than anyone else? Diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart issues. Guess what would drastically improve almost all issues? Exercise. But how can many of your pastors talk about exercise from the pulpit when many of them are overweight themselves? If we also had some better food choices, it would also help. See, our pastors do a lot of talking about what hurts us, but they really don't talk about what hurts us. We can lead more productive lives if we had more energy and better health. But we need somebody helping to teach us. Pastors would talk about healing our spirit, but they never talk about healing the body. Because the way they get around that, this body is a temporary place. But the Bible also said that the body is what the Creator gave us, and He meant for us to take care of it while we were here. It houses the spirit. See, most of your pastors are just like the government. And what do I mean by that? They want people to be fat and lazy because they're easy to control when they're out of shape and have very little energy. I also guarantee you that your church has somebody in the pews who believes in holistic and natural medicine. See, pastors are only teaching you about your soul, but the Bible says something a little different. I believe that's in is that 3 John 1 and 2, 3 John 1 and 2, I believe. And said, I know you're doing well spiritually. And I pray, I hope that everything else is going well with you, that you also enjoy good health. I believe it's something like, I want you, even as your soul prospers, I want your health. I can't remember. Y'all know what verse I'm talking about. See, the Father, Yahuwah, doesn't just want our spirits to be healthy. He wants our bodies to be healthy. He wants our minds to be healthy. See, over in Matthew 10 and 1, it's talking about the Messiah, and it said it called the 12 to himself, and he actually gave them power against unclean spirits. He gave them power to cast those spirits out. He gave them power to heal all manners of sickness and all manners of disease. That's right in our Bibles. Why aren't our pastors teaching us this stuff? See, when I was in the hospital, I had a young lady who was part of the care team. She was from Nigeria. And she'd actually come in and talk to me about healing. And she talked to me about something that had happened to her physically back home in Nigeria. And she said her daddy took her, did some praying over her, and healed her. And she said the first thing he did was teach her how to heal herself with her mind. And she told me, she said, Mr. Jones, you have one of the strongest minds I've ever seen in my life. She said, don't even look at those vital sign numbers they write on the board, because those are placed there to discourage patients. She said, don't even look at that board. She said, I work in the medical field, but it is one of the most negative places on earth. She said, we're supposed to be here to help, but many of these medical folks love seeing people suffer. And see, I can attest to that, because another one of the ladies on my care team came to me one day and said she walked up on some of the nurses in the hallway laughing about my condition. She said she overheard them saying, when Mr. Jones came in here, Mr. Jones could walk and Mr. Jones could talk and Mr. Jones could do all of this other stuff. I'm not going to tell you all the other stuff I wasn't able to do anymore once I got out of surgery. And she said they were laughing. I said, yeah, he ain't going to be able to do none of that stuff no more, even though he was able to do it when he got here. So that sounds like these people in the medical field were happy about my demise. They were happy about my suffering. What does this have to do with the black church? They are the exact same way as these medical professionals. They don't want to see people get well. Sick people keep medical people employed. And guess what? Sick people keep pastors employed. And both industries love it to remain this way. Sick people mentally keep politicians employed. See, over in Jeremiah 17 and 14, it says, heal me, O Yahuwah, and I will be healed. So you can also go to Isaiah 54 as well and talk and look at about that healing, and I've even seen some pastors say, well, over in Isaiah 54, that ain't talking about healing like y'all think it is. These Negroes sick. But Jeremiah 17 and 14 says, heal me, O Yahuwah, and I'll be healed. Save me, and I'll be saved, for you are my praise. See, the Bible is filled with scriptures on more than our spiritual health. Why aren't your pastors teaching about finances and wealth from the pulpit? Economics will empower us as a people. And right now, the only people being empowered by our economics is other cultures and our pastors. And see, Proverbs 28 and 1, it says, it basically says the wicked are afraid of many things that would not frighten the righteous. Did you hear me? Hear me? The wicked are afraid of many things that should not frighten the righteous. See, many of your black pastors are afraid of other black men having power because your pastors ain't righteous. They don't care if the black women get economics because they can talk most women out of their money from the pulpit and then outside the pulpit. See, I remember, I think I mentioned that on a few videos some years back about how I had run into a woman that I knew when I was a customer. I was a manager at a store, and she used to be one of my customers. And she told me I needed to go in the pulpit because there was a lot of money to be made as a pastor. And she said, I know you're married, Myron, but, it's a lot of women, single women in the church that got plenty of money. And, they would come up to you at the end of your message and, rub you on your butt and put $500 in your pocket, and your wife would have to be okay with that. What kind of foolishness is that? But I knew her husband, and I knew because I'd known her from years before, her husband had become a pastor after being a dope dealer. And I said, okay, why aren't you and your husband still married? Because he got one of the ladies in the choir pregnant. I said, so you telling me it's okay for me to put my wife in that predicament, but it wasn't okay for you to be in that predicament. See, your black pastors are afraid of other black men having power. And like I said, they'll take that money from the women. But see, when men work hard for their money, men don't willingly get that money up that easy. See, many pastors, black, white, and everyone else have always taught us to give to God first, but the Bible teaches something totally different. I mentioned earlier what it says about who should receive the first from the harvest, and it ain't the church. And get this, it ain't God either. I saw one pastor say that good men will manage their economic affairs to avoid church judgment. Let me tell you something. Today's church is in no position to judge anyone. And this dude actually used 2 Thessalonians 3 to justify it. Well, see, just like, and I mentioned before, just like in Malachi 3, 2 Thessalonians 3 is talking to those teaching the word for exploitation. See, Proverbs 22 and 7 says the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower becomes the lender's slave. When it comes to matters of money, pastors have a playbook that they love to use. They like to mention 1 Timothy 6 and 10, and we've all heard it. Love of money is the root of all evil. Well, 1 Timothy 6 and 10 really says the love of money is the root of all sorts of evil. But they teach the love of money is evil. If the love of money is the root of all evil, why do they constantly beg for that evil stuff from their pulpits? See, they'll give us Luke 6 and 38, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, but only if you sow into the collection plate abundantly. Over in, since I mentioned Thessalonians, 1 Thessalonians 4 and 11 says, do what you can to live a peaceful life, mind your business, and earn your own living. Wait a minute, let me pull that because I want to read that whole thing for you. 1 Thessalonians 4 and 11. Do all you can to live a peaceful life. Mind your own business and earn your own living, as we told you before. But you shall remember Yahuwah Eloheka, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth. Or the power, he who gives you power to get wealth. I believe that's Deuteronomy 8:18. I got these notes typed in here together with the scripture. These two particular scriptures, my bad. But Deuteronomy 8:18 said, you shall remember Yahuwah Eloheka, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth. That's Deuteronomy 8:18. And Eloheka means your God. Like I said, I got a different type Bible, and guy I've been communicating with for some time now, he sent me another Bible in digital format of Paleo Hebrew. And so I appreciate him for that. Proverbs 22:4 says, by humility and the fear of Yahuwah are riches, honor, and life. Ecclesiastes 10:19 says, a feast is made for laughter, and wine makes merry, but money answers all things. Now, through with that. Hey, don't get mad at me. That's right out of the Bible. See, there are a lot more scriptures, but you get the point. Our pastors are not teaching us how to rise economically. Our pastors are not teaching us how to get healthy. Our pastors are teaching us to remain in bondage to them, to the church system, to the government system, bondage to poor health, and bondage to debt. The Bible says when true Israel wakes up, judgment comes. Many of your pastors are going to be judged for catering to the demands of the world instead of teaching properly. They themselves don't want you as true Israel to wake up, because once that happens, they lose all of their power and their stronghold on Israel. Therefore, when that happens, the money that flows into their churches from Israel stops. Now, true Israel, that is. They're nothing more than pawns in Esau's game against true Israel, and they love being Esau's lackeys. At what point do our black pastors stop fleecing us and start preaching about empowerment? They will teach what they have been taught in seminary, and that God is not about specific people, because there is no Jew or Gentile. If there's no Jew or Gentile, why are these same pastors talking about staying with Israel right now? But I told you about that in House and State. But they say God ain't about a specific people, but they right now telling you to pray for a specific people. It's crazy. They going off what seminary and these Gentile teachers are taught. See, these Gentile teachers and teachers got these Negroes all messed up in their Bible learning. They're all messed up in their Bible teaching. And see, you know why Gentiles teach that? It's because the longer they keep true Israel in the dark, the longer they won't face judgment. So they think. But see, the problem with that thought process, they think they can change God's timing or Yahuwah's timing. See, most of today's pastors are practicing biblical malpractice. They are skirting around causes and offering solutions that are temporary. Getting a feeling is temporary. That's why a lot of marriages don't last. The people got married based on feelings. But see, love is a decision, not a feeling. See, that's all most people are getting from church, especially black people, a momentary feeling. What we see from the modern church is Christianity doesn't actually teach the Bible. Christianity uses the Bible out of context to teach Christianity. See, I already told you in the video, is Christianity pagan? Let me follow the way. I told you in that video what it was, and I gave you scripture to support and prove it. Let me let you in on a little secret. In order to worship the Creator, we don't come to him through religion. And religion is not a requirement. And that includes Christianity. Talk to you later.